Master Data Management, or MDM, contains processes and tools that enables enterprises to manage common data in multiple applications. This creates a secure single source of what's called lookup data. Microsoft's Master Data Services, or MDS, relieves the manual process of an enterprise data architect to keep a single source of lookup data along with its governance. Over many versions of SQL Server editions, Microsoft has improved the area customers were complaining about with MDS. This makes the tool one or many different software applications that can be used in what's now called Enterprise Information Management Systems, or EIM. Working in MDS takes control of the data in an enterprise or corporation or government agency, helping the organization take advantage of a single source of this lookup data. Managing this hub of data delivers a solution. It helps lock down the authority of the data with a standardized list. It also enables the validation of versions of the data to source to anyone in the corporation. So what's new in Master Data Services? The first is improved performance. One of the big things existing customers were complaining about. Data compression is on the entity level and it's on by default. When it is enabled, entity-related tables and indexes are compressed with row level, not page level compression. What it does is it reduces the disk I/O, the reading and updating of this data, especially when there's millions of rows or if you have a lot of null columns. The dynamic content compression IS feature is also enabled. It reduces the size of the XML response, saves network I/O, and decreases CPU usage. The SQL Server agents has new jobs. One of them does index maintenance and the other one does log maintenance. Security is a big deal too, and there's a new super user function. Permission is given to a user or AD group, and of course you only use Windows authentications. The permissions are as like a server admin, and in previous releases there was only one. The super user permission is assigned to multiple users and group, but in the previous release the original creator was the server admin. Before it was difficult to transfer this permission, but now that has been enabled. It helps if you lose an individual that was managing Master Data Services. There's also an explicit assign to the admin permission, and it's at the model level, which is really the highest level of all entities. So if later a user is assigned permission to some subtree structure of the model, the entity level won't lose the admin permission. There are a lot of more permissions introduced, like read granular level, read, create, update, and delete. For example, if a user has update permissions, they can now update master data without creating or deleting data, which is nice. You can also give a user create, update, and delete permission and not automatically assign the read permission. You can also combine any variations of these four different permissions. There's an improved manageability, which you'll see in the interface, kind of like reporting services. It helps lower the maintenance costs and kind of impacts your return on investment. There's also a transaction log maintenance. So once a lot of things get imported and that T-log for the database gets large, there's routines to help improve the performance of it, as well as the security features. There's also no longer this 50-character limit in renaming and hiding the name and code attributes, which was kind of irritating in the previous versions. In the business rules sections, the add-in for Excel can manage business rules, which it couldn't before, and it could create and edit these business rules. The business rules are really there to validate data. You can also apply user-defined SQL scripts as extensions to the rules, and this includes conditions as well as actions. SQL functions can be used as condition, and store procedures are used as actions. The management of the business rule experience in master data services in the web application has been completely redesigned, and it improves the experience of end users. The business rule maintenance function has been removed from the add-in in SQL because they redesigned the experience. There's 7 new rule conditions as well, and there's a complete set of conditions that lets you customize them to your needs, which is a big deal in master data services. There's also a change with hierarchies. There's now a many-to-many relationship, so you can have 2 entities modeled that has a third entity in between it, kind of like a bridge table in dimensional modeling. The entity has 2 or more domain-based attributes that reference other entities, like entity M references A and then references B. You can edit the many-to-many relations, modifying the mapping of the entity members later. The business rule management function has also been removed from the add-in in Excel because now it's been improved in the web application. Versioning is a big deal, and the member version revision history is recorded when a member makes a change. You can roll back a revision as well as view or annotate revisions. So since all this is being captured, the log retention, which was defaulted before, has been growing larger and larger in some customer databases. So now there's a new log retention days property. So you can specify on a model level the log history that's retained inside your model. If you publish data that's been changed by another user and the publish fails because of a conflict, you can resolve this error and then merge the conflicts and republish the changes. You can also have change sets with pending changes. You can view and modify these based on permissions, but it requires an approval for the change. And these pending changes in a change set must be submitted to approval by an administrator. There's also email notification each time a change set changes. So you might want to kind of control that to kind of lessen the amount of emails, but it is a great feature to have to know as an admin who and when things are changing, especially with revision history, by entity, and by member. You also have an update permissions. This can roll back a member to a previous version. In master data management, the first thing you really start using is a tool actually after you do some requirements gathering. Tools and automation are useful dreams of corporations, especially in IT. Who doesn't want to automate something? It's sometimes easier to manage the software than the people to accomplish some governance type task. So what do? You develop some standards. You discuss them in requirements meeting, but then your implementation is kind of scattered throughout different departments because each department seems to want to do their own thing. So the biggest part of master data management is the buy-in of the leaders of the individual departments and enforcement that someone has to use a master data management solution. Of course, the processes are refined over time, and multiple versions of SQL Server has been implemented through the feedback from companies that are using master data services. So Microsoft has listened, and they noticed that this is a big deal in large corporations. And the process of going through master data management has been improved through the different versions since SQL Server 2013. A reference is needed in order to begin a master data service entity. So the model is created referencing a particular set of data. The reference is then used to create the single source for what's called lookup data. At least that's the term I like to use. Master data management systems are all about the lookup data, not the relational data. So you start a master data management system, and then there's authority over this lookup data. So a manager of master data management might be called an enterprise data architect through master data services, has abilities to version the data as well as secure with granular permissions the columns as well as the entity data. But there is no transactional data in master data management. what you are managing is the lookup data that is shared between multiple systems. Not only shared between multiple systems, but might be drilled down into a dimensional model. So here can be a source of the dimensional model dimensions, but not the fact information. And then we have a new term called data steward, and this is done via the master data management. The data steward has sometimes been referred to as an enterprise data architect who starts implementing this governance of the data. Sometimes this person doesn't even spend time in a database, but then he or she needs a tool to manage it all and not through documents. What problems does master data management, along with a tool like Master Data Service, address? As an IT leader, you might see your company growing through mergers and acquisitions. If there is no master data management, a new system implemented or acquired from a company has data that's imported, and usually there are no checks or validation. So, Master Data Services could solve this when an authoritative list of master data can be set and authored as well as integrated, say through something like integration services or data quality services. There's also MDS API calls. So programmatically, developers could use the existing rules in an MDS implementation to govern the data while importing from a merger or acquisition. Also, data can be merged together through the Excel add-on to get different systems or versions of the same data. The merging of this validated data and then versioning of a correct set of data is great for implementing lookup data. The different source systems then become the receiver of data rather than the exporter of lookup data. Those API calls and integration of views give security level and granular data access to most open systems. The enforcement is by one or many data stewards, and they can use master data services to secure to certain users read-only or write new data permissions. The versioning can give access to just the latest version, but giving reading to the transactions over time has changed the value of lookup data. Of course, a big problem are reports that are not trusted. Who here hasn't said, export the data that you have in this report, or give me a raw file of this data? Usually it's because a person doesn't trust the data, but a well-implemented data management system, as well as buy-in from all upper-level management, can help lift that non-trust of reports because we know it's coming from a single source. The integrity and consistency has to be implemented in management data services. And what it implements is something like a foreign key relationship. But here, attribute properties are set up between entities that limit the data or column data that can be entered, just like an application that uses table integrity. Let's look at a demonstration of some of the features in Master Data Services. Here we can see the main web application used to look at Master Data Services. Here we have the models where some are created that are empty and open, whereas some that are created and have been committed to some version or another. You can view that in the status symbol. And then we have the different things you can implement through Master Data Services. The first one is exploring data. So if I go to exploring data, I can see my entities in the product 2016 version 1. I can add members, delete members, and apply rules. What's really neat is I can view the history, which will show me the changes over time. This is something that you have to track in order to not overload your particular system. We have related entities and we have change sets involved with that. As well, you have entities, entity dependencies, and even hierarchies. Here we have a delivered test hierarchy that shows the category, subcategory, and product in the product 16 model. This particular one helps enforce the integrity when I try to create a new product. So if I have a new accessories product, I need to be able to put it within some sort of subcategory. And as we drill into it, we can see that particular data. This is pretty cool because now you have an interface written for you that actually implements entity just like a relational database system. So that's where you can view. You also have collections and change sets. The next area is systems administration, and here's where you can manage the models. So for a particular model, I might need to edit it to change some of the information about it. For instance, do I want log retention, and how many days do I want it to retain that condition? So I can edit that there, or even create a new model if I wanted to. So if I try to manage a model and create a new one, I'll notice here's this check. Create entity with same name as model. Now, if you just have one entity and one model, it's okay. But what you want to do is uncheck that to give something available. You'll see it in Excel brought up where you can actually import data. Another option is system administrator and then integration management. Here's where you're able to create SQL views and used by other subsystems. So if I go to SQL Server Management Studio, I'll notice views created that mock the data inside of Master Data Services. And if I select the data, I can see by version and also only one particular version, which is the good, clean version, I can use in something like integration services to populate my dimensions. The other big one is version management. So if you look at this one under Live 360 product, you can see a committed version as well as an open version. So after the version's open and you finish with it, you actually can validate the version, then lock it, and then actually close it as a committed version. Here you can see none are waiting to be validated. All validation rules have passed, and there's 548 individual items in the product subcategory and categories. This one now can be validated and then actually used to copy an additional set. We'll go back here, and the last one is user group and permissions. So here you have to create user AD accounts, and you have some general information along with membership as well as functions, models, and hierarchy. So if you go to models, you can actually enforce the permissions for a particular person within the model. I can almost drill down to any level here and actually see the inherited permissions or the effective permissions. And if you notice, there's a green, blue, purple, and dark gray for delete, update, create, and read. So when I create that and I put it for a particular person and I look at the effective permissions, I can see it on every level as well as the access, and kind of like this little heat map. So let's go back to the main system, and you'll see that you can change the different versions and see one that's open. If we go to the particular versioning and actually version this particular product, we'll have to go to the one that is open and it's been validated. So now we want to lock that particular version. And once it's locked, then you can actually close it. An admin is the only person who can unlock it, and then there is a view for it. So it's locked and it's ready to be done. Once it's actually validated and the current locked committed version, then you can actually go to one and make a copy to start your new version. In enterprises today, there are multiple disciplines implemented over a management of information systems. This is all part of what's now being called EIM, or Enterprise Information Management. The first thing is integration services. This is the ETL tool, the ability to extract, transform, and load data that is implemented in SQL Server 2016. It has been around for more than a decade, or even more than a decade. It's now been implemented and so many new features added that in 2016 it is truly an enterprise level ETL tool. Master data services and data quality services implemented into this help lead corporations and even small IT shops to really get on top of all their information systems. Master Data Services has been implemented since SQL Server 2012, but has been improved over the last 3 versions or editions of SQL Server. The best is here in 2016. The response from companies means that they are wanting improvements to a piece of software created by Microsoft that helps them master this lookup data. With the improved performance and security, many customers are happy. One you didn't see many changes in 2016 is data quality services, other than the improvement of performance. It fits the mold of cleansing data with project management. It helps with misspelled words or actually intelligence to select the correct value that's coming through the process and has a learning ability with the projects. It's implemented into SQL Server Integration Services through the data flow task. Master Data Services is only available in an Enterprise Edition. It was previously available in the Business Intelligence Edition, but that has been removed in SQL Server 2016. But to develop against Master Data Services, you can install the Developers Edition, using only for non-production systems. By getting Developers Edition free through the Essentials, the Visual Studio Essentials place, you can actually use the Developers Edition to see if Master Data Services works good in your IT department. So what are the requirements for using Master Data Services? The first is your machine has to have Internet Information Services, or IIS. This is required, and security for the WCF data services is needed. Of course, you're going to need a SQL Server instance. Master Data Services creates a database to store all the metadata, including the data imported. It's also a repository for the views that other systems can use to access the master data. It runs as a WCF data service, so that data service is part of the installation and activation when configuring Master Data Services. There are 2 interfaces, Web and Excel. Web involves the application in IIS and uses in some parts Silverlight, so you're going to need to use Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer is the only browser that shows the Silverlight interfaces, and you're going to likely use those parts of the web application. But some work can be done in an add-on for Excel 2010 or later. This has become a favorite of many of the implementations. It's ordered is used as a client tool on most desktops. The interface can accomplish most of the web applications that use the Silverlight interface. The web interface of Master Data Service has different security levels, but they're all on a Windows authentication Active Directory account only. You will need to be able to access the Active Directory in order to add users to this system. Once imported as an Active Directory account, you can have an administrator set up for that user or direct permissions. SQL Server 2016 allows multiple admins in Master Data Services in case someone leaves and you don't have to hack the account used. There's also super users as well as granular permissions for the system. Most of these were added in the version for 2016. What's nice is you have the ability to insert, update, delete, and query data in the web application. The interfaces is one that uses Silverlight. An admin can edit any non-committed version, while other users cannot edit the historical, but only the active version of a model. Hierarchies are a big deal because this is where you can enforce constraints like foreign keys on table, as well as allow drop-downs for users to select from a particular list. A new project is created as a model in Master Data Services. It can contain multiple entities, but the creation is the beginning of a new model. An entity has to be added to a model, and this is done in either the web or Excel add-on. There are business rules like enforcing a name or using regular expressions. You can also enforce data types as well as length of column. And if it doesn't pass the business rules, the data cannot be validated. You can also have if-else-then structures as well as case logic. You can programmatically use these options. Very complex options are also available from customer feedback. Versioning is really cool. You can start to open your model, validate the model and data, then commit the model. The starting of updating a new copy of the model will be the next step after a model is locked. The cycle will start all over again and your users can change the data. Once a model is available, Excel's add-on can connect to the MDS service as well as add new data. The management of the entities can all be done in Excel except for the business rules and some hierarchy stuff. Loading data can be as easily as grabbing a CSV file, bringing it up in Excel, highlighting the data, and creating an entity from it. You can use this all through a data source in Excel. You can even work offline. That's possible, and you can make changes that aren't committed, but eventually you'll have to sync the model to the master data service. Annotating is a real nice way to give a description of why the data was changed. So if the validation is happening and someone sees that data has changed, by having an annotation description, the person can see why the change was made. To use Master Data Services in Excel, first you have to install the Master Data Services in Excel. You can click on the button through the web interface and it'll create a download that you can then install. Then, once you get that installed and you open up a particular spreadsheet from Master Data Services, you'll see the Master Data Services tab. In order to enable this tab, you have to go to File, Options, and then Add-ins. If you don't see it initially, you want to pick the COM Add-ins, click the Go button, and you'll see Master Data Services add-on for Excel. You check that and click OK, and then you'll get this tab. So the first part of the tab enables you to connect. You also can maintain multiple connections to multiple Master Data Services. But once you do connect, there is an Explorer. So here, once I do connect to the database, I can see my different models and choose what I want from there. I'm going to close this spreadsheet and I'm open up a new one. Once it comes up and I open up the new spreadsheet, I can go do the connect. So I'm going to connect to MDS. So what that gives me is an option to pick from my models. If I go to the product one, I can see the versions. I believe I have 2 versions in that one. Now you see that one is committed and one is open. So if I go to the committed one and try to go into that data and change it, probably because I'm an admin, it'll enable me to change it. But if you're a person with just read, write, read, insert, update, and delete, you won't be able to do it. So it's asking you that you can't change this particular data. And you can see that I cannot copy over it. So that one's locked. But if I were to go into one that's not locked, let's close this, open up another particular spreadsheet, pick product, and do the open one, and I go to category. Here's where I can actually do the changes. What's really neat, if I change this to something else like BK, it's actually going to record that change once I do the publish of this data. So it's going to publish this data to the Master Data Services, and I change bikes from BIK to BK. One cool thing about it is now, because of that, I can actually view the history and see why that particular change was made. Now I didn't put any description in it, but I can add here, user wants bike abbreviation BK. And then I can click add to add that notation on top of it. So there's many things you can do inside of here. Showing the Explorer shows me my different tools. If I open a new window, I can grab any of these products that I have. Now, for one, if I go to subcategory, we'll notice that there is a hierarchy in here. And I can add, say, a new category here. So if I go to that next row and I do test number 2, I should get a drop down for this particular thing. But I'll just copy and paste that particular value in there. Yeah, look, it already puts that in there. Give it a subcategory and then a category. And now I've just added a new row to this particular thing. You can apply rules. You can show audit information or statuses. I can even go to, say, this particular set of data, copy it, hit the plus sign, and paste. Now I have a new set of data. If I show the Explorer and I go to a new model for that version, I can actually create a new entity from this. It knows the range, it knows my model, as well as the version, and I can create it as my category. So you can see the web interface, the Excel interface actually uses the Excel add-on to add entities to a model. But first, my model must be created. So here I'm able to create from a range of data, pick a model and a version, enter the entity name. It's going to need a unique code column, and then it's going to need a unique name column. If I click OK, now it's created that entity in my model in version 1 for LNO. And now I'm able to use the Excel add-on. It gives you some other information like the link to where it belongs, and you can actually go through there. I can do the same thing with that subcategory information. So let's find my subcategories, and I can go copy that, add a new spreadsheet. Oops, didn't get it all. Let me make sure I have everything highlighted. Go to my sheet and paste. So now I can create, through Master Data Services, another entity. Here's my new one. I'll pick my model. I'll call it subcategory. And I'll find my code. And I'll find my name. And now I've created two entities. Now I can go into the web interface and create a hierarchy between these two, category and subcategory, in a new model. So just to review most of the information on here, we were able to connect, show the Explorer, and even refresh data. We can even apply a filter so we can filter out certain data and even save the queries. We can publish data as well as delete data, show the changed data set, and even combine data. If we have rules, we can enforce them, and we can create entities as well.